Well, I feel like I thank you for that question. And I want to say, and I want to thank you for your podcast, because I think that one of, its tenets here is to help people, embrace what is not considered, that is out, some things that are out, experience that is outside of the norm, or what we can say is outside of the scientific materialist view of the world, right? Which still dominates, but less so than it did 20 years ago. And that scientific materialist view is that, like, yep, nothing happens after we die. Anything that isn't provable is not real. And like all this stuff is hooey or woo woo or whatever it is. And that's just not true. I mean, we all, I feel that we don't have to be, it's normal, and all we're talking about is aspects of this world that are not part of ordinary physical reality, that are part of the unseen realms. And, that these things we experience. And I think the more that we acknowledge that we're experiencing it, and instead of dismissing it, the more that we're able to open and begin to trust our intuitive abilities. Like, so when you hear that phone ring and you're like, I bet that's my mom, or who it is, then acknowledge that you were correct, for example. So for me, I have a lot of they don't feel extraordinary to me so much anymore. And I think it's just because I live my life in the realm of, this is just like, my experience of going to the grocery store is part of my day. Sometimes something else will be part of my day. And an aside, I lived with 8 Tibetan monks here in my home for a year. I did a tour for them, and it was remarkable because, they're very tuned in to the non-ordinary side realm. And it's not like, woo, Another thing I want to just say about it, and I will tell you a story. I'm just prefacing it. We have this thing around, like, I've listened to your podcast and I've heard you talk about ghosts, right? So we talked before about spirits in bodies, spirits out of bodies. There's a thought in that, sometimes, well, I won't get into what maybe keeps them here, but this idea that we have in our culture still is that it's scary, right? So when I was a kid, I lived basically, I now know, in a haunted house. It was a farmhouse in New Jersey from 1848, and only like 3 other families had lived there. And it was like really scary, And I had a lot of experiences. Like, I saw a lot of things. I was very open. And my mom, my parents were just clueless until things started happening, and it started noticing that for them. But if you think about it, we have, it doesn't matter if it's like something positive that happens, like, oh, my dog that passed showed up in the storm and I was lost and led me out. If you hear it on TV, that wonderful, glorious, kind of beautiful story will have this music that'll be just like, oh, right. So we're really conditioned. And I know when I had prescient dreams as a kid, my dad would tell me that, he didn't tell me until I was in my 30s. I didn't even know he was clued in at all. But like, he said, yeah, when you were like 4, I'd come back from like business trips and you'd tell me everything I did, and you'd ask me about this person I was talking to and that person I was talking to. Like, I don't remember any of that. So I don't know what made him wait so long to tell me that. But it's just being tapped into something. I remember I had a dream when my grandfather died, and I saw the clock. It was basically an out-of-body experience. And I saw the nurse pounding on his chest. And when I woke up, I told my mom that I'd had this dream. I was maybe 10 or 11, and she got freaked out because he had died at that exact time. And So it scared me as a child. And so, I was like, I don't want this anymore. I don't want the ghosts anymore. I don't want the site, and we moved, and I kind of shut it down until it started coming up again, in my late 20s. And so I started having experiences again, but it still can be unnerving, but I will tell you a story if that's okay. Okay. So when I toured a lot, so this is before I began working in the field that I work in, where this stuff is not unusual at all. And I would often, we'd stay in these old hotels or different places, and you would feel something, like something's here, just a little, acknowledge that. But I started to ask, is there like a ghost here? And oftentimes the proprietor would be like, why, yes, there is, you know. And one time I was on tour with an artist named Keb'Mo, and I was opening for him, and I was staying at this hotel in Boise, old hotel downtown. And I came in and I was like, this is an old hotel. So I asked the person at the desk, is this haunted? Have you ever and they're like, well, I've never had an experience, but a lot of people say it is. And usually it's on these two floors. And I was like, oh, could I not have a floor? Could I not have a room on that floor then, please? And so he gave me a room because I need to sleep, I gotta sleep. I'm on tour. So I got into my room, and I was like, I felt it. And I was like, I am very uneasy in here. And I said, it wasn't feeling good, So I said, hey, I'm just here for the night, not going to bother you. And then I thought about it. I'm like, I'm just going to go change rooms. So I went down and said, would it be okay if I changed rooms? So I changed rooms. I got on the haunted floor, supposed haunted floor. It was perfectly fine. The room was clear. And so I went, so the next morning I had my show. I woke up, I was checking out. There was a different person at the desk. And I said, hey, is this place haunted? I just want to get a sample. You have a ghost here? And they said, you know what? The person who was on last night saw the ghost. So the guy who never had the experience, I just had the experience. So.